Imagine a moment when you realize you can no longer pretend. The masks you've worn for decades suddenly feel suffocating. The games everyone is playing around you become painfully obvious. The life you built with such effort begins to feel like a prison made of other people's expectations. You are not depressed, you are waking up. And with this awakening comes a slow, inevitable shedding, a quitting of everything that is not truly you. Not in one dramatic leap, but gradually, piece by piece, until one day you look back and wonder how you ever lived any other way. Awakening doesn't arrive like lightning to strike you and change you overnight. It seeps in like water through stone. Slowly, imperceptibly, it reshapes you. You find yourself allergic to what once felt normal. Small talk tastes like dust in your mouth. Ambitions that used to drive you now feel strangely hollow. Old identities hang off you like clothes that no longer fit. This is not something you decide. It happens to you. Your very being begins to reject falseness the way the body rejects poison. The question isn't whether you will quit these things. The question is only how gently you allow the process to unfold. The first thing you quit is the hunger for approval. You may not even notice at first, but little by little, the desire to be seen, liked, validated begins to rot in your hands. Where once you bent yourself into shapes to please others, suddenly you can't. The words won't come, the smile feels forced, your body rebels. It is not rebellion out of anger, it is transformation from within. Like a tree whose roots finally reach deep water, you no longer depend on the rain of approval. And so, slowly, the performance falls away, and something far more authentic takes its place. What replaces this hunger is not arrogance, not indifference, but a quiet sense of worth that comes from simply being. You realize you don't need to earn the right to exist through applause or recognition. You exist, and that is enough. It feels as though a compass has been placed in your heart, one that points true regardless of who is watching. Approval becomes irrelevant because you begin to taste a deeper nourishment, inner authority. And though it feels liberating, it can also feel lonely at first. For a while, you're caught between two worlds, no longer addicted to approval, but not yet at ease without it. Then, something curious happens. You quit the need to be special. For much of life, being special seemed important. To stand out, to be unique, to be admired. And yet, with awakening, this craving begins to dissolve. You may notice yourself growing quieter about your achievements, less eager to announce your discoveries. You stop weaving little performances to make yourself seem deeper, wiser, more conscious. At first, this feels frightening. If I am not special, then who am I? But slowly, you discover that when the need to be special dies, something extraordinary is born. You become authentically yourself, without costumes. It is a paradox. The less you try to stand out, the more radiant you become. Flowers do not bloom to impress the passerby. They bloom because blooming is their nature. And when you quit performing specialness, your uniqueness shines more brightly than ever. You are no longer imprisoned by the exhausting effort of appearing significant. You discover the quiet freedom of being ordinary. And in that ordinariness, life itself becomes extraordinary. You realize that to simply be is the greatest miracle of all. And so the weight of specialness, once so heavy, slips from your shoulders and disappears. Next comes a subtle but profound shift. You quit the performance of happiness. Not happiness itself, but the endless act of pretending to be happy, pretending to be positive, pretending to be above pain. You no longer have the energy to wear the mask of eternal sunshine. You stop forcing smiles when your heart is heavy. You stop reciting affirmations you don't believe. Awakening reveals that true spirituality is not about being endlessly cheerful. It is about being real. Real enough to feel joy when joy arises. Real enough to grieve when grief is present. Real enough to let life flow unmasked. At first, this may shock those around you. They were used to your performance. They counted on your mask. But as you quit pretending, you discover something astonishing. Authenticity carries its own kind of light. It is not the blinding glare of forced positivity. It is the gentle glow of truth. And this truth, even when it includes sorrow, is more healing, more inspiring than any false smile could ever be. To quit the performance of happiness is to reclaim your full humanity. It is to give yourself permission to live as the whole, unfiltered being you were always meant to be. Then, almost against your will, you begin to quit the need for certainty. Where once you clung to fixed beliefs, rigid identities, tidy explanations, you find yourself loosening your grip. Certainty, which once felt like safety, now feels like chains. You begin to sense that life is not meant to be pinned down. That truth is too alive to be captured in words. At first, this feels terrifying, to not know who you are, what will happen, or why life unfolds as it does. But slowly, you discover a peace that is deeper than certainty. You discover wonder. You discover mystery. To live without certainty is to live as a child again, with eyes wide open, astonished at the unfolding of each moment. You realize that not knowing is not a failure, but a doorway. That freedom lies not in answers, but in presence. The mind protests. It wants to rebuild its walls of knowledge, but each time you grip a certainty, it dissolves, until one day you stop grasping altogether. And there, in the vast openness of not knowing, you find yourself free. Life becomes a dance, not a puzzle to solve, and every step reveals its own quiet perfection. As this unfolds, another thing begins to die. Blame. Slowly, you quit blaming others, blaming the world, even blaming yourself. Not because harm never happened, but because blame no longer serves you. You see that holding on to blame is like drinking poison and hoping the other will fall. You begin to notice patterns, how the same hurts repeat, how the same roles play out. And instead of assigning guilt, you ask, what is life showing me here? What is this pain pointing toward? You realize that every wound carries a lesson, and that blame blinds you to the gift. Letting go of blame is not easy. The ego resists, wants to stay righteous, wants to keep the story alive. But awakening makes the story transparent. You see through it, and though you may still feel the sting of hurt, you stop clinging to it. And in that moment, an astonishing freedom emerges. No one holds power over you anymore. You become the author of your life. You see others, even those who wounded you, not as enemies, but as mirrors. They reflect your shadow, your unhealed parts, your forgotten depths. In this way, every conflict becomes a teacher. And then comes one of the most subtle shifts of all. You quit using spirituality as an escape. You can no longer hide behind meditation to avoid your feelings, or behind grand words to avoid your wounds. Awakening pulls you down into your body, into your humanity. It demands that you stop bypassing your experience and instead live it fully. You find yourself allowing anger, sadness, desire, confusion, not as failures, but as essential colors in the painting of existence. You quit trying to float above life and instead plant your feet firmly in it. Spirit and flesh become one. This is not easy, for the temptation to escape remains, but the soul will not allow it anymore. When you try to run, your body rebels. When you try to bypass, life places you face to face with the very thing you wanted to avoid, until finally, you surrender. And in that surrender, you discover something luminous. Being human is not the obstacle to awakening. It is the doorway. To embrace your humanity is to embrace divinity. To feel your fear, your longing, your grief is to touch the living pulse of the universe. And this is what spirituality truly means. Eventually, you notice something else dissolving. The isolation of awakening. In the beginning, it may have felt like you were alone, separated from the world by your new awareness. Other people seemed asleep, distant, difficult to reach, and so you withdrew. But slowly, awakening softens even this. You quit the idea that you are different, separate, superior. You realize that in truth, you are deeply connected to everyone, not through sameness, but through shared humanity. You see yourself in the stranger, in the asleep, in the ordinary. And this recognition dissolves the loneliness. You discover community not in ideas, but in presence. To quit isolation is to open your heart again, not in naive merging, but in conscious connection. You can sit with anyone, awake or asleep, and meet them as they are. You no longer need to prove yourself or protect yourself. You can simply be with them. This, perhaps, is the greatest fruit of awakening, the rediscovery of love. Not the love of romance or fantasy, but the love of presence, of shared being. You realize that when masks fall away, what remains between us is always love. And that love was what you sought all along. So what is happening here? Piece by piece, you are quitting everything false. The hunger for approval, the need to be special, the performance of happiness, the clinging to certainty, the poison of blame, the escape of bypassing, the walls of isolation. Each falls away, not because you reject it, but because you can no longer carry it. It is too heavy, too false, too small for who you are becoming. And in their place, something astonishing emerges. Inner worth, authentic uniqueness, genuine joy, peace with mystery, freedom from stories, full embodiment, and conscious connection. At first, this process feels like loss, like death after death, identity after identity, crumbling away. But look closer, and you will see it is not loss but liberation. Each quitting is a doorway into deeper truth. Each shedding reveals more of what you always were. You are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself. You are not dying. You are being born, again and again, in every moment. As what is false falls away, what is real remains. And what is real is simple, silent, present. It is you, as you are, without masks, without performance, without fear. The path of awakening is not about adding layers of wisdom, but about peeling away everything that is not true. It is not about becoming someone better, but about ceasing to be someone you are not. Awakening is not an achievement. It is a homecoming. And like all homecomings, it happens slowly. You stumble, you hesitate, you return to old habits, only to find they no longer satisfy. This is not failure. This is growth. Like waves on the shore, you move back and forth until finally the tide has turned and the old patterns are washed away. So if you feel yourself quitting approval, quitting specialness, quitting performances, quitting certainty, quitting blame, quitting escape, quitting isolation, trust the process. Do not force it and do not resist it. Let it unfold as it must. Let life peel away what is no longer needed. The quitting is not your doing. It is life moving through you, shaping you into who you truly are. And the more gently you surrender, the more gracefully it unfolds. Awakening is not a path you walk. It is a current that carries you. All you need to do is stop clinging. Look at your own life now. Can you see the signs? Can you feel the things that once held you, beginning to lose their grip. The friendships you can no longer maintain, the ambitions that no longer excite you, the masks that no longer fit. Do not fear these endings. They are beginnings. Do not mourn what you are quitting. Celebrate what is being revealed. For beneath the false layers, beneath the performances, beneath the old stories, there waits a self so luminous, so unshakable, so free, that once you taste it, you will never again trade it for approval or certainty. This, then, is the heart of awakening. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about no longer pretending to be someone else. It is about quitting everything that was never yours until only truth remains. And truth does not need applause or performance or certainty. Truth does not blame or bypass or isolate. Truth simply is. And when you align with it, when you allow yourself to live from it, you find that life itself becomes lighter, simpler, more fluid. You stop fighting the current and discover that the river of existence was carrying you all along. So I say to you, do not resist the quitting. Let it happen. Let it peel away everything that is false, everything that is heavy, everything that is not truly you. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will be lonely at times. Yes, it will feel like death. But on the other side of that death is life, life more vivid, more free, more real than you have ever known. When you quit what is false, what remains is love. And that love is not fragile. It is the foundation of the universe itself. It is what you are. You will discover that the self you thought you were, the actor, the seeker, the victim, the performer, was only... It is a most peculiar thing, you see, that a human being can spend an entire lifetime searching for themselves while never realizing they were never truly lost. And yet that is the great game we are all playing, the cosmic game of hide and seek. The universe pretending not to be itself, wandering through space and time in the disguise of you and me. Now, somewhere along the way, we forgot this game. We began to take the disguise rather seriously. We began to believe that this mask we wear, this name, this history, this bundle of memories, was who we really are. And so, the play became a tragedy. Because when the actor forgets he's in a play, the suffering feels very real indeed. But let us begin at the beginning, if such a thing can be said to exist. Imagine, if you will, the moment you were born, not the event itself, but the sense of entering a world that was already in motion. Nobody asked you if you wished to be here. You arrived as a mystery, blinking into a mystery. And the first thing you learned, almost immediately, was that you were something separate. The doctor said, it's a boy, or it's a girl. Someone gave you a name. Someone said, this is you. And in that instant, the great forgetting began. You see, the child does not know that there is a line between itself and the world. When a baby cries, it believes the universe is crying. When it laughs, it believes the whole sky is laughing with it. But very soon, we are taught otherwise. We are told where we end and where everything else begins. That's the first illusion, that there is an inside and an outside, that you are here and the world is there. We even speak of it that way. I came into this world. But that's not how it happened at all. You did not come into this world. You came out of it in precisely the same way a wave comes out of the ocean or a leaf grows out of a tree. You are not a stranger here. You are the universe expressing itself as this particular form for a while. And yet, because of language, because of conditioning, because of fear, we begin to imagine ourselves as isolated fragments. We identify with the body, with the name, with the narrative. And we say, I am this, and nothing more. But tell me, where exactly does this I begin? If I draw a line around your body, is that truly the border of you? Because the air you breathe becomes your blood, and your blood becomes your thought, and your thought changes the world around you. So where do you stop and the world begin? It's quite impossible to say, isn't it? The whole thing is one continuous process, yet our minds have divided it up for convenience. We draw lines, make maps, categorize, define. But the map, you see, is never the territory. The word is never the thing. The idea of you is not you. And yet, we have mistaken the symbol for the reality. This is why people suffer. Because we have been hypnotized by words, by images, by the great myth of separateness. The ancient Hindus called this Maya, the illusion that tricks consciousness into believing it is something apart from itself. And from this illusion springs all the great human dramas: fear, greed, ambition, loneliness, the endless craving to become something more. When you think you are a separate being, the universe becomes a threat. Everything outside is either something to be conquered or something to be avoided. You must protect yourself. You must compete. You must achieve. And so you spend your life struggling to survive, never realizing that the very energy of that struggle is the same energy that moves the stars. It is rather like a wave on the ocean trying not to be wet. The wave says, I must maintain my shape, my identity. I must fight against all the other waves. And in doing so, it forgets that it is the ocean itself. You and I are doing exactly that. We have become obsessed with being somebody rather than simply being. Now, this forgetting is not a mistake. It's part of the game. The universe hides itself from itself so that it can experience the joy of rediscovery. The darkness is necessary for light to recognize itself. The silence gives meaning to sound. And in the same way, forgetting who you are is the prelude to awakening. But the tragedy of our modern life is that we've made the forgetting permanent. We have built entire civilizations around the idea of separation. We have systems that reward competition and punish stillness. We have machines that amplify distraction. We measure worth in numbers, and we mistake productivity for purpose. And so, the game has lost its laughter, the play has forgotten its script. You can see this in the way people live. They move as if haunted, always chasing, always becoming, never arriving. They think salvation lies in the next promotion, the next purchase, the next achievement. But every time they reach the next thing, it dissolves like mist, because what they are truly searching for cannot be owned, cannot be earned, cannot even be found. It can only be remembered. And so the question arises, who or what is it that has forgotten? Who is this I that believes it is lost? If you look closely, you'll find something extraordinary. You'll find that the one who seeks is the very thing being sought. You'll find that beneath all the noise and confusion, there is a silence watching everything. That silence is what you truly are. When you close your eyes at night and the whole world disappears, that silence remains. When your thoughts fade for a brief moment, something is still there, isn't it? The awareness that notices the absence of thought, that's you. Not the story, not the name, not the body, the awareness itself, that which never comes and never goes. But we are so accustomed to looking outward that we miss it. We keep expecting truth to appear in some grand revelation when it has been quietly humming beneath everything all along. Like a song that never ends, only changes its tune. And so, to remember who you are is not to add something new. It is to remove what was never real. It is to peel away the layers of conditioning, fear, and pretense until only the simple fact of being remains. That is where the journey truly begins, not in acquiring, but in noticing. Not in striving, but in seeing clearly. You cannot become yourself because you already are. You can only wake up to that fact. And when you do, life begins to feel less like a prison and more like a play. The actors are the same, the scenery unchanged, but suddenly the story is light again. The laughter returns. The wave remembers it is the ocean. That is the beginning of remembering. That is the end of the dream of separation. When you awaken, even for a moment, to the truth of what you are, something remarkable happens. The world does not change, and yet it is utterly transformed. The same faces pass by, the same routines unfold, but there is a new quality to it all, a kind of luminous playfulness, as if the universe has been holding its breath, waiting for you to notice the joke. But it doesn't end there, because the moment we catch a glimpse of truth, the mind rushes in to claim it. It says, "Ah, I understand now. I've figured it out." And that, you see, is the second forgetting. The ego, clever as ever, puts on spiritual clothing and pretends to have seen the light. It becomes the seeker who has found. But remember, the moment you think you've captured truth, you've already lost it. Truth cannot be caught because it is what is doing the catching. It's a very curious situation. The more earnestly you pursue enlightenment, the more it recedes from you. Like chasing your own shadow, the harder you try, the further it slips away. Because you are what you seek. You are the awareness that is looking. And so, to look for yourself is a kind of cosmic comedy. The eye cannot see itself directly, only by reflection. This is why so many spiritual traditions emphasize stillness. Not stillness as in rigid quietness, but the stillness of understanding that there's nowhere to go, that the very act of seeking keeps the illusion alive. To sit quietly and observe is to see that the one doing the seeking is made of the same stuff as the sky, as the wind, as the stars. But here's where the pretending comes in. Even after this realization, life continues. You still have to eat, work, speak, love, and lose. You still stub your toe. You still get caught in emotion. You still wake up in the middle of the night wondering what it all means. The difference is subtle but profound. You now know it's a play. You still act your part, but you no longer mistake the mask for the face. You see, life is not something you overcome. It's something you dance with. The waves do not resist the tide. They move in harmony with it. So, too, does the awakened person move with life, not against it, not above it, but with it. To live this way is to rediscover innocence. A childlike wonder returns, not because you are naive, but because you are no longer cynical. You begin to see that everything is part of the same unfolding. The pain, the joy, the confusion, even the boredom, all of it belongs. All of it is the universe pretending to be separate, pretending to forget, so it can rediscover itself anew. But beware, the mind loves to make a project out of awakening. It says, now I must maintain my spiritual state, I must be mindful all the time. And so it creates yet another identity, the enlightened self. But that too is part of the game. The pretending continues, only now it's cloaked in holiness. The only way out is to see that there is no way out. You cannot escape the play because you are the play. You cannot stop pretending because pretending is part of what you are. The trick, then, is not to end the pretending, but to enjoy it, to see through it without denying it, to laugh at the cosmic joke rather than trying to explain it. Think of life as a grand symphony. Each note, each instrument has its place. Some play melodies, others dissonance. But the beauty lies in the whole, not in any single part. You are both the music and the musician, the listener and the sound. And to live with that awareness is to move through life with a certain grace, not the stiff grace of discipline, but the flowing grace of trust. Trust is the highest form of intelligence. It's not blind belief, it's participation. It's saying yes to the unknown. It's stepping into the rhythm without needing to know the choreography. Because when you trust the flow of life, you find it carries you exactly where you need to be. This doesn't mean you never fall. Of course you fall. But now you understand that even falling is part of the dance. You understand that pain is not punishment, it's the universe moving through you, rearranging, refining, renewing. Every tear, every stumble is another reminder that you are alive. And perhaps that's what we forget most easily, that to be alive is not to be perfect, but to participate. The stars burn and collapse, the trees grow and decay, everything changes, and that change is not a flaw, it's the very expression of beauty. In the end, awakening is not about rising above life, but sinking fully into it. It's not about being calm all the time, but about being real all the time. It's about allowing the whole spectrum of existence to play through you, the laughter, the fear, the tenderness, the confusion, and recognizing that you are not any single note, but the silence from which all of them arise. And so, when you remember who you are, you don't vanish into some mystical void. You re-enter the world with open eyes. You smile at the absurdity of it all. You forgive more easily. You laugh more deeply. You become softer, not weaker. Wiser, not detached. You realize that love is not a feeling, but a way of seeing. You begin to recognize yourself everywhere, in the eyes of a stranger, in the sound of the rain, in the passing wind, because how could you not? The one who once believed they were lost now sees that there was nowhere to go. The one who searched the stars now sees that the light was always within. The pretending continues, but now it is joyful. You play your part beautifully because you know it's a part. You cry when the story calls for tears, and you laugh when the scene becomes absurd. And when the curtain falls, you bow not in defeat, but in gratitude. For you have remembered the secret. The universe keeps whispering that it was you all along. And so, the remembering deepens. For what begins as a glimpse slowly ripens into a way of being, a quiet knowing that hums beneath everything you do. You still move through the world as a person, with a name and a story, but something within you no longer clings so tightly to that story. You wear it lightly now, as you would a costume at a festival. You play your part with sincerity, but you no longer mistake it for who you truly are. This is where the real transformation begins, not in grand revelations or supernatural moments, but in the smallest, most ordinary acts. Making tea, walking through the rain, waiting at a stoplight. You start to notice how extraordinary the ordinary really is. The smell of earth after a storm, the texture of a wooden table beneath your hand, the faint echo of laughter drifting through a window. You begin to live with an intimacy that no philosophy can capture. This is what the mystics mean when they speak of heaven on earth. It is not a place elsewhere. It is this very life, seen clearly, without the veil of judgment or expectation. To live this way is to rediscover wonder. You see that everything, absolutely everything, is sacred because it exists. Even your own confusion, your sorrow, your restlessness, these too are part of the divine dance. But the mind, ever restless, will still try to intervene. It whispers that such peace cannot last, that surely this stillness will vanish. It begins to search for ways to hold on to the state of grace, to capture it like a photograph. Yet every attempt to hold on to stillness destroys it. For stillness is not something to be kept. It is what remains when there is no grasping. And so, you learn to let go again, not as a lesson, but as a rhythm. Letting go becomes breathing. Each inhale takes in the world, and each exhale releases your need to possess it. Life flows through you rather than around you. You realize there was never a separation to begin with, only the illusion of one. In this stage of awakening, something else happens. You begin to see that others, too, are pretending to be separate. Every stranger becomes a mirror, every argument a lesson, every act of cruelty a cry for recognition. You begin to sense the shared ache of humanity, the longing to return home to something that was never lost. This understanding births compassion, not as an effort, but as a natural response. You see yourself in others because you finally see others as yourself. Now, compassion is often misunderstood. It is not pity, nor is it a soft sentiment. True compassion carries clarity. It does not enable illusions, but gently reveals them. When you act from compassion, you do not seek to fix anyone. You simply offer presence, a quiet reminder that they, too, are enough. And that, you see, is often the greatest healing of all, to be reminded that nothing is missing. This realization begins to dissolve fear. Fear thrives on separation. It feeds on the illusion that there is something outside you that can destroy what you are. But when you see that life and death, gain and loss, are movements of the same ocean, what is there to fear? The wave cannot fall out of the sea. It may rise and fall, but it never ceases to be water. Imagine for a moment a leaf floating down a stream. The leaf does not resist the current. It does not complain about where it is taken. It moves gracefully, not because it understands the river's path, but because it trusts the flow. You, too, can live this way. You can let yourself be carried, not by resignation, but by participation. You move with life instead of against it, and in doing so, discover that the current was never against you. As this understanding deepens, even suffering begins to look different. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to wonder, "What is this showing me?" The pain doesn't vanish, but its meaning changes. It becomes a teacher, not an enemy. It softens the edges of the self, humbles the ego, opens the heart. You begin to see that the cracks are not signs of failure. They are the spaces through which the light enters. In time, even the idea of awakening fades. You no longer measure yourself against spiritual ideals or compare your progress to anyone else's. You simply live. You laugh when it's funny. You cry when it hurts. You fall. You rise. You begin again. You stop trying to be spiritual and start being human, which, ironically, is the most spiritual thing of all. The sages were never superhuman beings. They simply stopped pretending to be anything else. They embraced their humanity so fully that it became transparent, allowing the infinite to shine through it. To live like this is to understand that divinity is not somewhere else, waiting to be reached. It's here, looking out from behind your eyes, breathing through your lungs, pulsing in your veins. This is the quiet revolution of awareness. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or revelation. It arrives gently, like dawn through a half-open window. It changes everything by changing nothing, for it reveals that nothing needed changing. The self you were trying to fix was never broken. The world you were trying to save was never lost. To see this clearly is to rest at last. Not the rest of exhaustion, but the rest of arrival. You realize you've been home all along. Every detour, every mistake, every heartbreak was part of the journey back to what never moved. You laugh softly at the irony of it all, and in that laughter, a great peace arises. It's not the peace of escape, but the peace of inclusion. You can finally say yes to all of it, the confusion, the clarity, the birth, the death, the gain, the loss. You see that life's perfection is not in its smoothness, but in its completeness. It holds everything, and that wholeness is love. And so, you walk differently now. You no longer rush. You no longer grasp. You no longer wait for permission to be alive. You move through the world as a presence rather than a person, as an awareness rather than a role. And wherever you go, something silent and beautiful goes with you, reminding all who meet you that they, too, have never been lost. And then there comes a kind of quiet after the knowing. Not the quiet of emptiness, but of fullness. as though life has finally exhaled and found itself resting in its own rhythm. You wake one morning and realize there is nothing left to search for. The seeking, the striving, even the idea of becoming someone better dissolves like mist in sunlight. You see, the moment you stop trying to arrive anywhere, you discover that you have always been here. This is the final unfolding of the journey, not a destination, but an absorption. The wave returns to the ocean, not by effort, but by remembering it was never apart. You, too, begin to live with that same natural ease. You no longer ask life for meaning, because you have become meaning itself. Everything you touch, everything you see, reflects the same still intelligence that lives within you. You start to laugh at the absurdity of the game we all play, the endless chase for validation, the frantic pursuit of success, the anxious clinging to permanence. You see it now as a cosmic dance, a play where the actors have simply forgotten it's a play. And rather than feeling superior or detached, you feel tenderness, because you remember what it was like to be caught in the script, to take every line so seriously. Compassion deepens, not as a virtue, but as understanding. You begin to notice that the boundaries between you and life are melting. The wind moves, and it feels like your breath. The rain falls, and it feels like your tears. Someone smiles on the street, and it feels like your own joy shining back at you. It's as if the whole world has turned into a mirror, reflecting only one truth. There was never two. And what becomes of fear in such a place? It loses its hold. Not because you have conquered it, but because you see through it. You see that fear was always a shadow cast by your forgetting. When you remember who you are, fear has nothing left to cling to. You realize that the great mystery of life has never been against you. It was only waiting for your cooperation. This doesn't make you invincible or indifferent. You still feel pain, you still grieve, you still stumble, but now there's a softness around it all, a kind of quiet trust that runs through every experience. You understand that sorrow and joy are not opposites, but two notes in the same song. You don't try to hold one or escape the other. You let them both play through you. And in that harmony, something timeless begins to hum. You realize that even death, that great unspoken fear, is not an ending but a rhythm, a return. It's the breath of the cosmos inhaling again. What you truly are cannot die because it was never born. It only takes form for a little while, to taste itself, to play. And when the play ends, it bows and becomes the stage once more. This understanding doesn't make you distant from the world. Quite the opposite. It draws you closer. You love more deeply, laugh more freely, forgive more easily. You no longer need to protect yourself from life, because you have recognized that you are life. Every moment becomes a prayer without words, an act of worship without worshipers. It's funny how we spend so much of our lives trying to control what was never ours. We fight the current, build walls, wear masks, and then one day you realize you don't have to do any of that anymore. You can let the river carry you. You can let the walls fall. You can let the masks drop. You can finally breathe. And in that breath, the world breathes with you. The trees sway in rhythm. The birds call in response. Even the silence feels alive. You begin to feel a subtle joy that asks for nothing, that depends on nothing. It's the joy of simply being. The kind of peace that doesn't need to be protected because it cannot be taken away. You look back at your life, all the mistakes, the detours, the heartbreaks, and you see the hidden intelligence woven through it all. Every fall was a doorway. Every delay, a redirection. Every ending, a beginning in disguise. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was wrong. It was all part of the unfolding, the remembering. And as you sit quietly, watching the sun dip below the horizon, you feel no need to hold on to it, no sorrow that it's fading, because you know it will rise again, not because of belief, but because of rhythm. The same rhythm that moves your breath that beats your heart, that carries the tides of the sea and the stories of your life. To live this way is not to transcend the human experience, but to be fully immersed in it without being consumed by it. You can taste the salt of tears and still smile. You can watch the seasons change without wishing them to stay. You can love without fear of loss, because you understand that love itself never leaves, only its forms change. This is what it means to awaken. Not to escape the dream, but to dream consciously. To know you are both the dreamer and the dream. You live in the world, but you are no longer bound by it. You participate in the drama, but you no longer mistake the stage for reality. You have come home to yourself, and in doing so, you have come home to the universe. And perhaps that's the most beautiful realization of all, that you were never lost, never broken, never unworthy. You were simply playing hide and seek with eternity, waiting for the moment when you'd stop searching and start seeing. Now you see, and seeing, you smile. Because the great secret, the one that sages have whispered through time, is beautifully simple. You are already what you seek. So you walk on, not to arrive, but to express, not to find meaning, but to reveal it. And as you walk, the universe walks with you, endlessly unfolding, endlessly returning, endlessly free. Most of us live under an unspoken law: always be available. It begins early. A child is taught to answer immediately when his name is called. At school, an absent response is punished. In the workplace, we are told to keep our phones nearby, our inboxes open, our minds alert, just in case someone needs us. Availability is rewarded, praised, demanded, and so we grow into adults who confuse availability with goodness. We believe that saying yes makes us virtuous, that answering quickly makes us reliable, that bending ourselves for others makes us lovable. But in truth, constant availability is a kind of prison. A man who is always available to others becomes unavailable to himself. He is present everywhere and yet nowhere. Why do we equate availability with love? Because we are told that self-sacrifice is noble, that to be good is to give, and to give endlessly. And so we say yes. Yes to invitations we do not want. Yes to tasks that drain us. Yes to relationships that hollow us out. Our lives become a collection of other people's needs. We become like actors on a stage, performing roles assigned to us by family, friends, colleagues, strangers. We smile when we are tired. We nod when we disagree. We show up when our spirit longs to rest. But what kind of love is it if it demands that you betray yourself? The man who is always available pays a silent price. He loses the weight of his own presence. When he says yes to everything, his yes means nothing. His attention, scattered everywhere, becomes worthless. His presence, given away freely, becomes invisible. Consider water. When it overflows indiscriminately, flooding every place, it destroys. But when it is directed, when it flows through a channel, it nourishes. It becomes life itself. So too with your availability. Scattered everywhere, it is wasted. Given with discernment, it becomes sacred. And so one day, perhaps without even knowing why, a man decides not to answer. The phone rings, and he lets it ring. A request is made, and he says no. A demand is pressed, and he steps away. In that moment, he feels fear. For he has broken the law of availability. He has dared to say, I am not here for you right now. And immediately, the world reacts. Those who depended on his constant yes grow unsettled. They say, you've changed, you're selfish, you don't care anymore. But what do these accusations truly mean? They mean only this: you are no longer as useful to me as you once were. The shock of this realization cuts deep. He thought his presence was valued for who he was, but now he sees it was often valued for what he could give. When you stop being available, you hold up a mirror to others. You reveal who was with you for your essence and who was with you for your service. True companions remain. They do not vanish when you say no. They respect your boundaries, for they have boundaries of their own. They know that love is not measured in exhaustion, but in truth. False companions fall away. Their affection was never for you, but for your availability. And when your availability ends, so does their loyalty. This clarity is painful, but it is also liberating. For the man who loses false friends gains space for real ones. The first thing you notice when you stop being available is silence. At first, it feels like emptiness. The phone rings less. The requests stop. The invitations grow scarce. You feel abandoned, even punished. You wonder if you made a mistake, but slowly the silence changes. It becomes not emptiness, but presence. For the first time, you hear your own thoughts without interruption. For the first time, you feel the rhythm of your own breath, the pull of your own heart. And you begin to realize being unavailable to the world is not the same as being absent from life. On the contrary, it is the first step toward being truly present. By withdrawing, you become more real. The man who says yes to everything is never fully here. His mind is fractured into 1,000 obligations. His spirit is thin, stretched across the demands of others. He is always present and yet absent. The man who withdraws, who dares to say no, who refuses to be endlessly available, he becomes whole. He is less accessible, but more authentic. He is less frequent, but more meaningful. His presence, though rarer, carries weight. This is why stepping back feels heavy. It is the weight of reality pressing in, after years of dispersing yourself into illusions. But the world will not celebrate your withdrawal, for society thrives on availability. Employers want workers who never rest. Friends want companions who never decline. Families want members who never set boundaries. And so, when you withdraw, you become inconvenient. You disrupt the unwritten agreement that says, we will all pretend to be endlessly available so that no one has to face themselves. Your no exposes the lies in their yes. Your silence unsettles their noise. Your absence reveals the shallowness of their presence, and so they resist you. They call you cold, selfish, arrogant, but what they truly mean is, you no longer sacrifice yourself for my comfort. The early stages of withdrawal feel like exile. You walk alone, you question yourself, you wonder if you are becoming bitter, if you are making a mistake, but in truth, you are being initiated into a deeper life. The loneliness is not punishment, but purification. It strips away the crowd so that you may finally hear your own soul. And slowly, solitude reveals itself as something other than emptiness. It becomes a fullness, a companionship with life itself. The stars bear witness to you. The wind becomes your friend. The silence embraces you like an old companion. You begin to see that solitude is not absence of others, but presence of truth. So yes, when you stop being available, you carry a burden. You lose false friends. You face accusations. You endure silence. But this burden is also a gift. For in losing what was false, you gain what is real. In being accused of selfishness, you discover the difference between servitude and love. In embracing silence, you find presence. The weight of constant availability is the heaviest of all, for it is the weight of living for everyone but yourself. The burden of withdrawal is heavy too, but it is the weight of freedom. This is the beginning of the transformation, the first step on the path. The man who stops being available feels the sting of rejection, the ache of solitude, the discomfort of silence. But he also begins to feel something else, the stirring of authenticity. the slow awakening of presence, the whisper of freedom. It is not yet complete. The path is long and the burden still heavy. But the shift has begun, and once it begins, there is no turning back. When a man continues on the path of withdrawing his endless availability, something subtle begins to happen. At first it was only silence and loss, but slowly the silence becomes a sanctuary and the loss becomes a purification. He begins to see that his life was never meant to be a constant answering of demands, but a dance with reality itself. At the beginning, he thought that saying no was selfish. But over time, he sees that his no is not rejection, it is direction. It is the recognition that his energy is not infinite, and that to give it without care is to diminish its power. By saying no, he is not closing the door on others, he is opening the door to authenticity. And this shift changes everything. When he speaks now, his words carry weight, for they are not spoken out of obligation. When he shows up, his presence is felt more deeply, for it is not scattered across 100 places. His time is no longer an automatic offering, but a deliberate gift. The strange paradox is that by being less available, he becomes more present. Those who still walk with him notice this. They may not always like it, but they feel the difference. When he is there, he is truly there. When he listens, it is with the fullness of his being. When he gives, it is without resentment. And this, he realizes, is what love actually is, not the endless performance of availability, but the offering of one's whole self in truth. There is a certain peace that arises when you stop scattering yourself. You discover that you are no longer running, no longer rushing to keep up with the demands of everyone else's timetable. You learn that time itself begins to feel different when you are not filling it with obligations. Moments stretch, breaths deepen, the pace of life softens. You are no longer carried away by the current of endless yes. You begin to walk at the rhythm of your own soul. This is when the world around you changes. Some people will fade, unable to handle your boundaries. They will complain, accuse, distance themselves. And yet, you notice that others arrive. New companions who respect your space, who are not offended by your no, but grateful for your authenticity. Relationships built on illusion end, but relationships built on truth are born. In these relationships, you find freedom. You do not need to perform. You do not need to exhaust yourself to prove loyalty. You can disappear for a time, and they will not hold it against you. For they too have understood that love is not measured in constant availability, but in honest presence. Withdrawal also awakens a deeper awareness of life itself. When you are no longer always on call, you begin to hear the quieter voices of existence. The rustle of leaves becomes a conversation. The flow of a river becomes a teaching. The stars above you are no longer background decoration, but companions on the path. You realize that by becoming unavailable to the endless noise, you have become available to the eternal song. The irony is almost comic. All those years, you thought you were being good by being available, but in reality, you were absent from the one thing that truly matters, the mystery of being alive. In saying no to the world, you have said yes to life. And this yes cannot be faked. It carries a different vibration. People may not understand why they are drawn to you now, but they feel it. Your presence, no longer cheapened by endless accessibility, has become rare and therefore precious. Of course, there will still be moments of doubt, times when loneliness creeps in, times when the old habit of overgiving tries to return, but you have tasted the difference. You have felt the liberation of boundaries. And once you have seen the value of your own presence, you cannot go back to selling it cheaply. Some will still call you selfish. Some will insist you have grown cold. But within yourself, you know this is not true. You are not less loving, you are more. For your love is no longer diluted by resentment. no longer poisoned by exhaustion. Your love, though rarer, is whole. To live this way is to embrace a kind of nobility, not the nobility of pride or superiority, but the nobility of truth. It is to live without pretense, without performance. It is to know that your worth is not measured by how many demands you can meet, but by how authentically you can stand in the world as yourself. In this realization, life becomes lighter, not easier, for there will always be pressures and expectations, but lighter because you no longer carry the unnecessary weight of pleasing everyone. You carry only what is real, and in that reality, you discover strength. When you stop being available, everything changes. Not only because the world sees you differently, but because you see the world differently. You are no longer trapped in the endless cycle of obligation. You are no longer enslaved to the constant call of others. You have stepped into a deeper rhythm, one that aligns not with the noise of the crowd, but with the music of existence itself. And this, perhaps, is the greatest discovery, that availability, when given wisely, is not a duty but a gift. That your presence, when offered in truth, can touch others more deeply than 1,000 empty gestures. That by protecting your time, you honor the mystery of life. So let the world call you selfish. Let the crowd misunderstand. For in their misunderstanding, you are freed. You are no longer theirs to command. You belong only to life, to truth, to the great unfolding dance of being, and in that belonging, you find peace.
You know, there's something rather amusing about this whole spiritual business. People come to me and they say, Alan, I've been meditating. I've been reading all the right books. I've had this extraordinary experience of oneness with everything. And then almost in the same breath, they add, but why am I so terribly alone? Why can't I find someone to love? And I look at them, and I want to laugh. Not because I'm mocking their pain, you understand, but because they don't see the cosmic joke they've walked into. They've awakened to the fact that they are the entire universe expressing itself, and now they're complaining that they can't find a date on Saturday night. It's like a wave suddenly realizing it's the ocean, and then worrying that it can't find another wave to go steady with. But let me tell you something. This loneliness, this sense of standing apart from the ordinary games of romance, it's not a bug in the system. It's a feature. And once you understand why, you'll see that what looks like a problem is actually the opening of a door to something far more interesting than anything you left behind. So let's talk about love. Real love. And why those who wake up find the old game utterly impossible to play. The first thing you must understand is that what most people call love is nothing of the sort. It's a transaction, a barter system. Two hungry ghosts making arrangements in the dark. You see, we've all been taught a very peculiar story about love. We're taught that somewhere out there is the other half of ourselves, that we are incomplete, broken, insufficient. And if we could just find that special someone, that missing piece, we would finally be whole. What a marvelous piece of fiction that is. And like all good fiction, millions believe it without question. So we go through life shopping for completion. We dress ourselves up, we learn the right words to say, we practice our smiles in the mirror. And all the while we're terrified, absolutely terrified, that no one will choose us, that we'll be left on the shelf like unwanted merchandise. So this is what passes for a romance in our world. Two people, each convinced of their own incompleteness, each desperately hoping the other will fill the void. And for a while, it works. The intoxication of it, the fever, the sleepless nights, the constant thinking about the other person. We call this falling in love. But notice the word, falling. As if love were a pit you stumble into, as if it was something that happens to you rather than something you do. And what fuels this falling? Not love, my friends. Not love at all. But need. Raw, desperate need. The need to escape. from the horror of being alone with ourselves, the need to prove that we matter, that we exist, that someone finds us worthy of attention. It's all very romantic on the surface. The love letters, the declarations, the dramatic gestures. But underneath, it's just two people using each other as life preservers in what they imagine to be a drowning. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you awaken, even just a little bit, you begin to see through this game. You start to notice that what you called love was mostly fear wearing a prettier costume. You see how much of your passion was really just anxiety about being alone. How much of your devotion was really just bargaining. I'll be what you want if you'll be what I want. I'll soothe your terror if you'll soothe mine. And once you see this, once you really see it, you can't unsee it. It's like watching a magic trick after someone has explained how it's done. Oh, you can still appreciate the skill involved. You can admire the performance, but you're no longer fooled by it. The rabbit was in the hat all along. This is why the awakened find it so difficult to fall in love in the conventional way. Not because they've become cold or unfeeling, quite the opposite, but because they can no longer participate in the mutual hypnosis that passes for romance. They've seen the wires holding up the stage. They know the love songs are about neediness dressed up in moonlight. They recognize the whole drama for what it is, a beautiful, tragic game that two incomplete people play to avoid facing their own emptiness. But here's the thing. When you wake up, you discover something extraordinary. You're not empty at all. That void you were so afraid of, that terrible loneliness you were trying to escape, it was never real. It was a story you told yourself. A story so convincing that you organized your entire life around avoiding it. The truth is, you are not half a person waiting to be completed. You are not a fragment of something that broke apart at birth. You are the whole thing. You are the universe experiencing itself through this particular pattern called you. You are as complete right now as you will ever be. The idea that you need someone else to make you whole is like a wave, thinking it needs another wave to become water. It's already water. It was always water. And when you really understand this, when you feel it in your bones, something shifts. The desperate hunger that drove you toward others begins to quiet down. You stop scanning every room for potential saviors. You stop measuring every interaction by whether it might lead to the completion you seek. Because you're not seeking completion anymore, you're already complete. Now this sounds wonderful in theory, and in many ways it is. There's a tremendous freedom in not needing others to validate your existence. But there's also a price. And the price is this. You can no longer play the old game. You can no longer pretend that the theatrical performances of conventional romance are real. You can't fake being swept away when you see too clearly how the sweeping is done. This is where the loneliness comes in. Not the loneliness of being physically alone. That's easy. You can sit by yourself for hours and feel perfectly content. No, this is a different kind of loneliness. It's the loneliness of seeing through a game that everyone else still plays. It's like being the only adult at a children's party. The children are having a wonderful time. They're completely absorbed in their games. But you can't join them. Not because you don't want to, but because you can't make yourself believe the games are real anymore. You meet someone. They're attractive. They're interesting. They seem to like you. And in the old days, this is where the story would begin. The story of pursuit and conquest, of longing and fulfillment, of two people finding each other in the vastness of the world. But now you see the story before it even starts. You see how it will unfold. The initial intoxication, the gradual revelation of flaws, the negotiation of needs, the slow recognition that neither of you can give the other what they're really looking for, because what they're looking for doesn't exist outside themselves. And so you hesitate, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You cannot walk into a trap when you see it so plainly. You cannot drink the poison when you know what's in the cup. And this hesitation, this inability to throw yourself into the old drama, it sets you apart. Others sense it. They feel that you're not playing by the usual rules, and it makes them uncomfortable, or it makes them curious, but either way, it creates distance. Here's what nobody tells you about awakening. It raises the standard. Before, you might have been content with someone who made you laugh, someone who found you attractive, someone who filled the evenings with conversation. But now, that's not enough. You're looking for something else, something that has no name in the usual vocabulary of romance. You're looking for someone who has also seen through the game, someone who knows they are already whole, someone who isn't trying to use you as a missing piece in their puzzle. Because only then can you meet each other as you actually are, not as fantasies or saviors or solutions to loneliness, but as two expressions of the same reality, two waves that have both realized their ocean. And here's the difficulty. Such people are rare, extraordinarily rare. Most people are still caught in the old story. They're still looking for their other half. They're still trying to build their identity through relationships. They're still playing the game with deadly seriousness. And you can't blame them for this. You played it too, until you didn't, until you saw through it. But the fact remains, the field has narrowed considerably. Where once there were many possibilities, now there are few. Where once you might have fallen in love with someone's smile, or their wit, or their way of moving through the world, now you need something more. You need them to be awake, or at least awakening. You need them to know what you know, to see what you see. And that severely limits the options. This is why so many spiritually awake people find themselves alone. Not because they can't love, but because they can't love in the old way anymore. They've outgrown it. Like a child who has learned to read and can no longer find satisfaction in picture books. The old stories don't work anymore. They need something more substantial, something real. And sometimes, often actually, that something real doesn't appear. Years go by, you meet people, you have conversations, you feel connections. But none of them go deep enough. None of them touch the place where you actually live. And so you remain alone, not in bitterness, not in despair, but in a kind of patient waiting. Waiting for someone who speaks your language, who breathes the same air, who has traveled to the same country you have and knows its geography. There's a certain dignity in this aloneness, a kind of integrity. You're not willing to settle for less than truth. You're not willing to go back to sleep just because sleeping is more comfortable. You'd rather stand in clarity, even if it means standing alone, than kneel in illusion with company. But let's be honest, it's not always easy. There are nights when the silence feels heavy, when you wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. When you look at people in their ordinary relationships, with all their ordinary dramas and compromises, and you think maybe that would be easier. Maybe you're asking too much. Maybe this clarity you've gained has cost you something precious. And you'd be right. It has cost you something. It's cost you the ability to be satisfied with illusion. It's cost you the option of using another person to avoid yourself. It's cost you the comfort of not knowing what you know. These are real costs. And sometimes they feel like too much to pay. But here's what you must understand. You can't go back, even if you wanted to. Even if you tried to play the old game, to pretend you don't see what you see. It wouldn't work. The awakening has happened. You've tasted something real. And once you've tasted the real thing, the counterfeit loses all its flavor. So what do? You wait. You live. You continue to grow and learn and experience the richness of existence. You don't close your heart. You don't become bitter or cynical. You simply recognize that love, real love, must come from a different place now. Not from need, but from fullness. Not from fear, but from freedom. Not from the desperate grasping of two incomplete people, but from the joyful meeting of two whole beings. And maybe it comes. Maybe one day you meet someone who has walked the same path, who carries the same quality of presence, who looks at you and sees not a solution to their loneliness, but a companion in the mystery. Someone who doesn't need you to complete them, because they're already complete. Someone who can love you not because they must, but because they choose to. Because the loving itself is the point, not what they get from it. When that happens, if it happens, it's nothing like the old falling in love. There's no fever, no obsession, no desperate clinging. Instead, there's a recognition, a meeting of equals. Two people who are already at peace with themselves, choosing to share that peace with each other. Not because they need to, but because they want to. Because it's delightful. Because it's an expression of the freedom they've each discovered within themselves. This kind of love doesn't bind, it doesn't possess, it doesn't make demands. It simply is. Like water flowing, like birds flying, like the sun shining. It's love without agenda, without negotiation, without the subtle bargaining that underlies so much of what passes for love in this world. But again, such love is rare, and there's no guarantee you'll find it. You might spend your whole life waiting. You might die having never met another awake being in the intimate way you long for. And you must make peace with that possibility. You must be willing to walk alone, if that's what clarity requires. Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is to go back to sleep, to stuff yourself back into the old costume and play the old part, to use someone or let someone use you in the mutual pretense that this will solve the problem of existence. And you can't do that anymore. The costume doesn't fit. The role doesn't convince. You've seen behind the curtain, and there's no putting the veil back up. So you carry this strange gift, this burden of clarity. You're awake in a world that's mostly sleeping. You see through games that everyone else takes seriously. And yes, it's lonely sometimes. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, you wish it were easier to find someone who understands. But you wouldn't trade it, because you've tasted freedom. And freedom, real freedom, is worth any price. The spiritually awake can't find love, not because love has abandoned them, but because they refuse to call anything less than truth by that name. They've stopped confusing need with love, hunger with passion, attraction with devotion. They've stopped playing the game where two people use each other as escapes from themselves. And in stopping, they've opened themselves to something far more real. Something that may never come, or that may come tomorrow, or that may already be here, in forms they haven't learned to recognize yet. But whatever happens, they know this: they are already whole, already complete, already free. And that knowledge, that certainty, is more valuable than all the counterfeit romances in the world. They would rather be alone in truth than coupled in illusion. They would rather wait a lifetime for something real than settle for something that merely fills the time. This is the price of awakening, and it is also its gift. You lose the ability to lose yourself in others, but you gain the ability to find yourself in everything. You lose the comfort of mutual neediness, but you gain the freedom of not needing at all. You lose the old story of romance, but you open yourself to the possibility of something so much greater. Love without conditions, love without demands, love that asks nothing and gives everything. Love that is not a feeling or an emotion, but a way of being in the world. And if you never find another person to share that with, where you still have the love itself. Because it was never in the other person anyway. It was always in you, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be lived. Not as a transaction between two people, but as the ground of your very being. As what you are, not what you do. As the ocean, not the wave. This is why the spiritually awake can't find love in the usual way, because they've already found it in the most important way. They've found it in themselves. And nothing, no person, no relationship, no romance, however sweet, can compare to that discovery. Everything else is just play. Delightful perhaps, beautiful sometimes, but play nonetheless. And you can enjoy the play without mistaking it for the real thing, without betting your piece on its outcome, without forgetting who you are beneath all the costumes and roles. So yes, you're alone sometimes. Yes, the crowd has thinned out. Yes, it's harder to find someone who speaks your language. But you're also free in a way you never were before. Free to love without needing. Free to connect without clinging. Free to be yourself without apology or pretense. And that freedom, that vast, spacious freedom, is what you've been looking for all along. Not in another person, but in yourself, where it always was, where it always will be. Waiting for you to come home.
It is a curious thing how certain words, certain ideas, certain encounters arrive in our lives at precisely the moment they are most needed. You may wander for years without noticing them, pass them by in books, or hear them spoken in conversations without giving them a second thought. And then, suddenly, one day, the very same words strike you like a bell. They sink in as though they had been waiting all along for this particular instant, as though they had been whispering on the edge of your awareness, patient until you were ready to hear. It is almost uncanny, as if the universe itself had arranged a meeting between you and a truth that had been hiding in plain sight. People often imagine that wisdom works like information, that you can simply accumulate it as you do facts in a textbook. But real wisdom does not behave this way. You cannot force it into the mind by will alone, because wisdom is not simply knowledge. It is recognition, a shift in perspective, a new way of seeing what has always been there. And recognition cannot be hurried. Just as you cannot command a seed to sprout before its season, you cannot make a truth blossom within you until something within you is prepared. The soil of your life must be turned, softened, made ready by experiences, by struggles, by longings you cannot quite name. Only then does the seed crack open. Only then does the teaching find you. We do not like to admit this because it challenges our sense of control. We prefer to imagine that we are the masters of our growth, that we can schedule our awakenings as we schedule our appointments. But have you ever noticed that the most important lessons of your life never arrived according to your plans? They arrived through detours, accidents, heartbreaks, moments of despair. They came when you thought you were lost, when you thought you had failed, when you had given up hope. And it was in precisely those moments that something opened a window, a crack, a ray of light breaking through. What once sounded trivial suddenly became profound. What once was invisible suddenly became undeniable. In this sense, the message that reaches you is not external at all. It is not that some stranger's voice, some book, some lecture suddenly becomes magical. It is that you, in your vulnerability, have been prepared to hear it. You and the message are two sides of the same event, inseparable, like the crest and the trough of a single wave. If you had encountered the same words yesterday, they might have meant nothing. If you had encountered them tomorrow, they might have passed you by. But here, now, at this exact moment, they land, they strike. And something in you recognizes that they could not have come a moment sooner or later. This recognition is unsettling because it suggests that our lives are not purely random nor purely controlled. They move in a mysterious rhythm that we only notice in hindsight. We recall how one encounter led to another, how one disappointment cleared the way for a new opportunity, how one loss prepared us for a deeper love. And in that remembering, we see that what looked like chaos was in fact a kind of dance, as if life itself were weaving a pattern too vast for us to see all at once. When you look back, do you not find that the teachings that mattered most came when you were struggling most? When everything seemed to fall apart, when the future looked uncertain, when you no longer trusted yourself, that is when you were most ready. In comfort, you did not listen. In ease, you did not notice. But in suffering, your defenses cracked, your certainties dissolved, and you became porous enough for something new to enter. It is not that suffering is desirable for its own sake, but that it humbles us, it opens us, it breaks the shell we have built around ourselves. And in that opening, wisdom slips in like water into dry earth. This is why we can say that the teaching finds you, but only because you were also moving toward it all along. Like two rivers flowing from distant mountains, winding separately through valleys and forests, meeting at last in the same sea. You may not have known you were flowing toward this meeting, but the currents of your life carried you here. Every mistake, every success, every heartbreak and joy, each was shaping the channel, deepening the riverbed, until at last the meeting could take place. And when it does, it feels inevitable, as though it had been written in the very grain of reality. We call this synchronicity, or fate, or providence. But these are only words for a deeper mystery, that life itself is not fragmented, but whole. You and the teaching are not separate, not strangers meeting by accident. You are part of the same process, the same unfolding. The words you now hear are not external instructions imposed upon you. They are the echo of your own innermost self, finally reaching your conscious ear. It is like a mirror showing you your own face, which you had somehow forgotten. And when you see it, you realize you have known it all along. But do not think that this recognition means you have now arrived once and for all. For just as one seed sprouts and grows, so another waits in the soil. Life continues to unfold, and new lessons will find you, each at the moment of ripeness. You cannot rush them, and you cannot avoid them. You can only trust that they will come as surely as the seasons change, as surely as the tide returns. To be alive is to be in conversation with reality, and reality never ceases to speak. The irony is that the harder you search for these teachings, the more they seem to evade you. You read desperately, listen endlessly, seek feverishly, and yet feel nothing. And then, when you least expect it, when you have given up searching, when you are simply quiet, they arrive. Why is this? Because seeking with desperation is a kind of grasping, a kind of tension that prevents you from truly hearing. But when you surrender, when you stop demanding that life provide answers on your timetable, you create the space for answers to arise. It is like trying to catch a reflection in water. Stir it with your hand, and the image is distorted. Let it become still, and the reflection appears by itself. So, if you are hearing these words now and they strike you as true, know that it is not an accident. It is not because I have spoken them with special power, but because you are ready. Something in your life has ripened, something in you has softened, and these words land in that soil. And if you are hearing them and they do not yet resonate, that too is not an accident. They may be seeds that lie dormant for now, waiting for the season of your need. Either way, life is at work, in its own time, in its own mysterious rhythm. What matters is not to cling to the words, but to trust the process. Words are only fingers pointing to the moon, never the moon itself. They are signposts along the way, but the way itself is walked in your own steps, in your own life. The teaching does not live in books or lectures or voices, but in the living movement of your awareness. And the awareness that hears these words now is the same awareness that will carry you through every moment to come. You may believe that when a teaching arrives at the right moment, it is because someone else has given you something you lacked. You imagine that wisdom is outside, waiting to be handed down, like a gift wrapped and delivered from another place. But if you look more deeply, you will see that what truly happens is recognition. The words may come from another, but the truth they awaken is your own. It is like seeing your reflection in a mirror. The mirror does not give you a face. It only shows you what was already there. This is why the teachings that move us most often feel strangely familiar. You hear them and you say, "Yes, I knew this, though I never put it into words." You feel as though something you had forgotten is suddenly remembered. And that feeling of remembering is the mark of real wisdom, because wisdom is not the adding of something foreign, but the uncovering of what was hidden. The seed was always in you. The words, the teacher, the moment of crisis were only the rain that awakened it. In this way, life itself is the teacher. Every joy, every sorrow, every accident and triumph is part of the curriculum. Sometimes the lesson comes gently, like a friend offering a hand. Sometimes it comes harshly, like a storm tearing away what you clung to. But always it comes when you are ready to receive it, whether or not you realize you are ready. You may resist, you may protest, you may even despair, and yet when you look back later, you see that the timing was perfect, that without that experience you would never have awakened to the truth that now sustains you. To see this is to relax the grip of fear. For most of us spend our lives afraid that we are missing out, that we are behind, that we should have already known, already succeeded, already become. But life is not late, nor is it early. It is always on time. The message arrives when it is needed, not when the ego demands it. And so the teaching you hear now, at this exact moment, is precisely what belongs to you now. Tomorrow, another will come, and so it goes, endlessly unfolding, endlessly ripening. Think of the seasons. The tree does not bear fruit in winter, nor does it cling to its leaves in autumn. Each stage has its own necessity, its own beauty. In the same way, your life unfolds in seasons of growth, of loss, of waiting, of abundance. To demand fruit when the branches are bare is to suffer needlessly. To trust the cycle is to see that nothing is wasted, nothing is out of place. Even the falling of the leaves, even the emptiness of winter is part of the renewal. So too with the teachings that reach you. They come in their season, not before, not after. They come when you are open enough, tender enough, broken enough, or strong enough to hear them. And when they come, they awaken in you not something alien, but the deeper part of yourself that was waiting to be remembered. The truth has always been yours. The timing is life's. And perhaps this is why we often say, the universe is speaking to me. What we mean is that we sense an uncanny fit between our inner need and the outer event. A phrase in a book, a line in a song, a chance conversation, it lands with such precision that it feels orchestrated. But the orchestra is not outside you. It is the unity of inside and outside. The recognition that what appears in the world and what arises in you are not two, but one. The synchronicity is not a message sent from elsewhere, but the expression of wholeness revealing itself. If you can see this, then you realize that nothing is ever truly wasted. Even the messages you ignored years ago, even the teachings that seemed meaningless at the time, are part of the unfolding. They were seeds scattered in the soil. Some sprouted quickly, others lay dormant, waiting for rain. And when the rain comes, even decades later, the seed awakens as though no time had passed. Life does not forget. It waits. This understanding changes how you approach the present. Instead of grasping desperately at every teaching, fearing that you must capture them all. You can relax. What is meant for you will not miss you. What you are not ready for will simply pass by, and that too is fine. You do not need to force the process. You only need to live attentively, to be present, to allow life to work upon you as it always has. The rest will take care of itself. And here lies the final paradox. When you see that the message always finds you when you most need it, you realize that you never needed the message at all. For what it points to is the awareness that has always been here, the awareness listening now, the awareness that is the thread running through every moment of your life. The teaching is not the truth, you are. The words are only reminders, echoes, invitations. What they awaken is the recognition that you are inseparable from life, that you are the dance itself, not a separate dancer trying to learn the steps. Imagine for a moment that life is a vast ocean. Each wave rises, falls, and dissolves back into the sea. A wave does not need to be told how to rise or how to fall. It is carried by the ocean's movement. In the same way, you do not need to be told how to live. You are already living. You are already the expression of life's movement. The teachings that reach you simply remind you of what you already are, the ocean waving here and now. And when you see this, the anxiety begins to dissolve. You no longer worry that you are behind, that you have missed your chance, that the wisdom you needed has passed you by. For how could you miss what you already are? How could you be late to your own being? Whatever comes, comes in its time. Whatever does not come, was never meant for this season. To trust this is to rest in the unfolding, to surrender the constant demand for answers, and to discover that the answers are already present in the silence of awareness itself. So, when you hear these words, take them not as instructions to be followed, but as reminders of what you already know. Let them wash over you as waves wash the shore, not grasping, not clinging, not analyzing. If they resonate, it is because the time has come. If they do not, it is because another time will. Either way, life is speaking and you are listening, because you and life are not two. You are the same movement, the same mystery, the same awareness looking at itself through countless eyes, and perhaps that is the deepest teaching of all, that nothing is missing, nothing is wasted, nothing is out of place. The message finds you when you most need it, because you and the message are the same. The giver and the receiver are one. The timing is perfect because there is no other time. There is only this, now, endlessly appearing, endlessly sufficient.
You know, there's something rather amusing about the way we've been taught to talk to God. We approach it as if we're sending a telegram to some distant cosmic emperor who sits on a throne billions of miles away, checking his clipboard to see if we've been good enough to deserve his attention. We kneel down, close our eyes very tightly, fold our hands just so, and then we begin our performance. Dear God, we say, as if we're writing a letter to someone we've never met. I hope you're having a nice day up there. Now, about that thing I wanted... But what if I told you that the whole setup is backwards? What if talking to God has nothing whatever to do with talking to someone else at all? Let me ask you something. When you talk to yourself, do you use words? I don't mean when you're muttering about the grocery list or rehearsing what you're going to say to your boss. I mean in those quiet moments when you're really listening to yourself, when you're trying to figure out what you actually feel about something, what you truly want. In those moments, there's a kind of knowing that happens before words, isn't there? It's more like a recognition, a sensing, a direct awareness of what's going on inside you. Now, here's the curious thing. What we call God, what we might also call the universe, the ground of being, the eternal now, this isn't some separate entity sitting outside of you, checking off items on a list. You see, you are an expression of this whole universe. You're not in the universe like a marble in a box. You are something the universe is doing right here, right now, in the same way that a wave is something the ocean is doing. So when you talk to God, you're not really talking to someone else. You're becoming aware of what you already are. You're tuning in to the fact that this thing you call me is actually the whole cosmos experiencing itself from this particular point of view. Think about it this way. The wave rises up out of the ocean and looks around and says, my goodness, I'm separate from all this water. But of course, that's nonsense. The wave is water. It's made of water. It moves with the water. When it crashes on the shore, it doesn't die. It simply returns to what it always was, the ocean. We are like that wave. We rise up out of this mysterious source, this ground of all being, and we think we're separate from it. We think we have to shout across some vast distance to get its attention. But you can't be separate from it, because you are it. You are the universe looking at itself through your eyes right now. So what does it mean to talk to God? It means to stop, to be quiet, to listen. You see, we've got the whole thing backwards. We think prayer is about speaking, about making our requests known, about explaining our situation to some divine bookkeeper who might not have noticed what's going on in our lives. But the real art is in the listening, not the speaking. When Jesus went off by himself to pray, he wasn't reciting memorized formulas. He was becoming quiet enough to hear. He was letting go of the noise in his head, all the chatter, all the planning and worrying and rehearsing. He was settling into a deeper silence where something else could speak. And what speaks in that silence? Well, that's the whole mystery, isn't it? You might call it intuition, or guidance, or the voice of God. But what it really is reality itself making itself known to you. It's life showing you what wants to happen next. Let me tell you what happens when most people pray. They come with an agenda. They've already decided what should happen. They've figured out exactly how God should fix their problem, exactly what solution would be best. And then they dress it all up in humble language. If it be thy will, Lord, please do exactly what I've already decided should happen. But this is rather like going to a doctor and saying, I've diagnosed my own condition and prescribed my own treatment. Now please give me what I've decided I need. The doctor might smile and say, perhaps we should examine you first, don't you think? The correct way to talk to God is to come empty. To come not knowing. To come without your list of demands and requirements. To come as pure listening, pure receptivity, pure openness to what is. This is not passivity. This is not. It's something much more alive than that. It's like swimming in a river. If you try to control the water, if you try to force it to flow in a different direction, you'll exhaust yourself and probably drown. But if you relax into the current, if you feel which way it's moving and flow with it, then you discover you can navigate with incredible grace and power. When you sit quietly and stop all your internal chattering, something remarkable happens. At first, you notice all the noise, all the thoughts bouncing around like popcorn in a hot pan, all the worries, the plans, the memories, the fantasies. And your first instinct will be to try to stop them, to push them away, to make your mind blank and pure. But you see, this too is just more doing. It's more controlling. It's more of you trying to force reality to match your idea of how it should be. Instead, simply watch. Watch the thoughts come and go like clouds drifting across the sky. You don't have to do anything with them. You don't have to believe them or act on them or push them away. Just watch. And in the watching, something begins to happen. The thoughts begin to slow down. The chatter begins to quiet. And in that quietness, you begin to sense something else. A presence, an awareness, a sense of being held by something much larger than yourself. This is what Jesus meant when he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He wasn't talking about some future reward or some place you go when you die. He was talking about this direct awareness of your unity with all that is. This recognition that you are not separate from the source of all life. Now I know what you're thinking. But what about my problems? What about the things I need help with? Are you telling me I should just sit quietly and do nothing while my life falls apart? Not at all. But here's what I am saying. The help you need doesn't come from some external deity who might or might not decide to intervene. It comes from this deeper wisdom that emerges when you get your anxious, controlling little ego out of the way. When you're all wound up in worry, when you're frantically trying to figure everything out, when you're desperately praying for God to change your circumstances, you're like a radio that's jammed with static. The signal is there, but you can't hear it because you're making too much noise. But when you become quiet, when you let go of your agenda, when you stop trying to control the outcome, something amazing happens. Solutions appear that you couldn't have thought of. Opportunities open up that you didn't know existed. You find yourself saying and doing exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment, not because you planned it, but because you got out of your own way and let life flow through you. This is what it means to pray without ceasing, as Paul put it. It doesn't mean walking around all day reciting prayers. It means living in this state of open awareness, this constant listening, this ongoing recognition of your connection to the source of all being. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're worried about money. The usual way of praying about this is to ask God to give you money, to make your circumstances better, to solve your financial problems. But notice what this does. It keeps you focused on the problem. It reinforces the belief that you don't have enough. It makes you feel powerless and dependent on some external force to rescue you. But suppose instead you sit quietly and simply become aware of your breathing. You notice the air moving in and out. You notice that you didn't have to learn how to breathe. Your body just knows. It's been breathing you since the moment you were born, and it will continue breathing you until the moment you die, without any effort or worry on your part. And then you expand that awareness. You notice that your heart is beating, your food is digesting, your cells are doing their incredible dance of life. All of this is happening without any conscious control from you. The intelligence that runs your body is vastly greater than your conscious mind. And this intelligence, this organizing principle, this creative force, it's the same intelligence that spins the galaxies and grows the trees and brings the spring after winter. It's all one thing. And you are not separate from it. You are one of its expressions. When you really feel this, when you sense your connection to this vast creative intelligence, something shifts. You stop feeling like a beggar asking for scraps. You start feeling like what you are, an integral part of this whole magnificent process. And from that place, from that sense of connection and trust, you begin to act differently. You make different choices. You see opportunities you missed before. You find resources you didn't know you had. The money problem might or might not resolve itself immediately, but your relationship to it changes. You stop being paralyzed by fear. You stop making desperate decisions. You start flowing with life instead of fighting against it. This is what Jesus demonstrated over and over again. He didn't stand apart from the Father, begging and pleading. He said, I and the Father are one. He lived from that place of unity. And from that place, the so-called miracles happen naturally, not as violations of natural law, but as expressions of a deeper understanding of how things actually work. Now you might say, but what about gratitude? Shouldn't we thank God for what we have? Of course. But again, we've misunderstood what gratitude really is. It's not about keeping God happy, like a child thanking a parent so they'll get dessert. Real gratitude is simply the recognition of the gift that existence is. Look at this. You are alive. You can see, hear, taste, touch, smell. You can think and feel and experience this astonishing world. None of this is ordinary. None of this is something you earned or deserved. It's pure gift. It's grace. It's miracle. When you really see this, when you really feel the extraordinary nature of the most ordinary moment, a glass of water, a breath of air, the warmth of the sun, gratitude arises naturally. You don't have to manufacture it or perform it. It simply bubbles up from the recognition of how blessed you already are. And this gratitude changes everything. It shifts you from a state of lack to a state of abundance, from fear to trust, from grasping to receiving. And in that state, you become a channel for even more life, even more creativity, even more blessing to flow through you. So here's the correct way to talk to God. Sit down. Close your eyes if you like, or leave them open and softly focused. Take a few deep breaths and feel your body relaxing. Notice the thoughts bouncing around in your head, but don't follow them. Just watch them come and go. And then, without words, without any formulas or scripts, simply open yourself. Be receptive. Be listening. Be aware. Notice the silence underneath all the noise. Notice the space in which all experience is happening. Notice that you are aware, and this awareness is not separate from what you're aware of. You might sense a presence. You might have insights bubble up. You might simply feel a sense of peace or connection. Or nothing much might happen at all, and that's fine too. You're not doing this to get something. You're doing it to remember what you are. And then as you go about your day, carry this awareness with you. When you're washing dishes, really wash the dishes. Feel the warm water. Notice the bubbles. Be completely present to this simple act. When you're talking to someone, really listen. Don't plan your response. Don't judge what they're saying. Just be there, fully present, fully open. This is prayer. Not the words you recite, but the quality of your presence. Not the requests you make, but the awareness you bring to each moment. When you live this way, you discover something wonderful. The distinction between sacred and ordinary dissolves. Everything becomes prayer. Making breakfast is prayer. Walking to work is prayer. Listening to a friend is prayer. Because you're no longer separate from the source. You're no longer trying to get God's attention. You're simply being what you are, a unique expression of the divine, a particular way that the universe is experiencing itself. And from this place, when you do speak words of prayer, they come from a different source. They're not demands or bargaining or performance. They're expressions of this deeper awareness. They might sound like, thank you, or help me see clearly, or simply yes. You see, the correct way to talk to God is to recognize that there's no one to talk to. There's only this eternal now, this present moment, this direct experience of being alive, and you are not separate from it. You are it. So stop trying so hard. Stop performing. Stop pretending you're someone you're not, talking to something outside yourself. Just be quiet. Just listen. Just open yourself to what is, and in that openness, you'll find that you're already being prayed through. The universe is speaking itself through you. Life is living itself as you. God, if you want to use that word, is not something you talk to. It's what you are. This is the secret that the mystics have known in every tradition. That the seeker and the sought are one. That the prayer and the prayed to are the same thing looking at itself from different angles. That prayer is not communication between separate beings, but the universe becoming conscious of itself. So the correct way to talk to God is to stop talking and start listening. To stop seeking and start being. To stop performing and start experiencing. And in that simple shift, everything changes. Not because God finally heard you and decided to answer, but because you remembered what you always were, an inseparable part of the whole. The